Hello everyone who happened to stumble upon this video while eating once again. In this video, we're back with another episode of What Happened to the Old Generation Archons, right? But before we get into that, we have to talk about what the term Old Gen actually means. When we say Old Generation Archons, we're referring to Archon characters that were released in earlier patches. For example, Venti and Zhongli. Venti was released in version 1.0, right? As for Zhongli, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it was version 1.3 if I remember correctly. So these characters are considered old-gen Archons. Let's be honest here, these Archons have seen a significant drop in popularity in recent times, to the point that it's honestly a little worrying. Why has this happened? Let's find out in this video. By the way, if you're planning to top up your favorite games or buy Steam wallets, make sure to check out Eneba. It's a super convenient site where you can top up games, buy game keys, and even grab gift cards like Steam Wallet at a lower price than buying directly in-game. Plus, you actually get cashback with your purchase. It's a win-win. You'll find the link in the description and pinned comment below. Don't miss out. Let's start with Venti. To be honest, Venti has been out of the meta for a long time now. The main reason is because Venti doesn't offer much besides his crowd control ability. And if we're being real, crowd control isn't exclusive to him. Many other characters have it too, like Sucrose and Kazuha. And of course, Kazuha came in as a power creep with better grouping and buffing abilities. One big reason people stopped using Venti is because of how his grouping works. He pulls small enemies with too much force but fails to affect larger enemies. That's a huge letdown, especially considering he's an Anemo Archon. It's strange that someone like Kazuha, who's just an ordinary guy, has better utility. Another thing is that Kazuha can buff elemental damage based on his elemental mastery and also reduce enemy resistance via artifacts. But Venti? He can only reduce resistance using artifacts and has no elemental buffing capability. So, there's really no good reason to choose Venti. One more reason Venti can't shine anymore is because of his constellation. Venti's constellations mostly just reduce Anemo resistance and slightly boost Anemo damage. Like C6 reduces resistance to elements involved in swirl reactions by 20%, right? But Sucrose has something similar. Her C6 gives a 20% elemental damage bonus instead, which functions pretty similarly. The difference: Sucrose is a 4-star unit. Venti is a 5-star Archon. And we're not even talking about new gen versus old gen here. Sucrose and Venti came out in the same patch. The constellations are just on a completely different level. Overall, I think Venti really deserves a buff. He's an Archon after all. If they were going to buff him, I think his ultimate, which already has strong crowd control, should also be able to group large enemies, and his constellations should be revamped to make them more appealing to pull for. Next, let's talk about Zhongli. Why has Zhongli dropped in popularity? I think it's because, back in the day, character damage was more or less even across the board. Nowadays, it's still decent, but not the same. First of all, Zhongli has the strongest shield in the game, right? And he also has a buffing ability where he reduces nearby enemy resistance by 20%, including physical resistance. That was good for a long time, even in recent patches, but nowadays most modern teams tend to rely on supports who can sustain, buff, and deal sub-DPS damage. We don't really see heavy sustain characters like Zhongli anymore. If a character does have sustain, it's usually just a bit of healing combined with massive buffs. For example, Escoffier can heal with his burst, not particularly strong, but he reduces resistance by 55%. Granted, he's a more niche support. Or take Ian-san. She can heal a little and still provide strong buffs. Same with Bennett, same with Chevreuse. Some people might say, well, Zhongli can use the Petra artifact set and give elemental bonuses when you pick up a crystal from a crystallized reaction. That's true, it gives a 35% bonus. But the problem is, you have to actually pick up the crystal. If the enemy barely touches you and breaks the shield before you can grab it, it's useless. Or maybe you use the tenacity set, which I think most people do. That one requires you to deal skill damage every 3 seconds to maintain the buff. Zhongli can do that, sure. But if the enemy walks out of range of his pillar's pulse, then nothing happens. And it only buffs ATK by 20%. On the other hand, The new Anemo Shielder Lanyon can reduce enemy resistance by 40% using the Viridescent set, and her constellations allow her to heal her own shield by 40% every 2 seconds. So if enemies can't break it fast enough, it'll never break. Not to mention, Lanyon can also use the Sitlily book or even TTDS as her weapon. That's a support power creep right there. Another example is Zilonin, a hybrid sustain buffer who can reduce resistance, buff elemental damage through artifacts, and heal too. Meanwhile, Zhongli is just a shielder who doesn't offer as much buffing as newer characters. That's why he's no longer a must-have in modern teams. His thick shield isn't as necessary as before because today's buffer characters come with some built-in sustain. Many times, we'll even see teams that have 2 of these types of characters in the same comp. For example, Bennett and Zilonin together. That's 2 healers in one team. Or take a typical Pyro Archon team, Bennett, Zilonin, and Sitlally. That's 3 sustain-type characters. Zhongli just got power crept indirectly. That's why he's being picked less and less. But not as bad as Raiden. Let's be real, Raiden was designed really well at first. She's a battery that can deal damage. But in today's game, at C0, she just doesn't deal enough damage. Even I don't use my C2 Raiden anymore. Why? Because Raiden wasn't born to be a true main DPS. Even at C2, she can't compete with new-gen Electro main DPS characters. Even if we don't compare her with other Electro characters and just compare her as a main DPS in general, Raiden can't keep up with new-gen units. These new Natlan characters are doing 200,000 to 300,000 hits regularly. Raiden's main utility is now just her battery role, but even that isn't as useful anymore. Why? Because many new-gen characters don't need energy much at all. Like Skirk, doesn't use energy. Mavweka barely uses normal energy either. Arlecchino hardly needs energy since you almost never use her burst. And even those who do need energy often have artifacts or passives that regenerate it by themselves. We don't really have energy-hungry characters like Xiangling popping up often anymore, so Raiden's battery utility just isn't as valuable as before either. Right now, her main niche is pretty much just in Hyperbloom teams. Alright, that's about it for this video. Thanks so much for watching till the end. And thank you again to everyone who's subscribed to the channel. That's it from me for today. See you in the next video. And don't forget to top up your game on Eneba. The link's in the description and pinned comment.